Hello, everyone. This is Kyla from Hidden Gems Literary Emporium, your family-owned nonprofit community bookstore. And today we have a special guest, the author of this beautiful book of poetry, Mr. S. Jones Marshall, who's the author of this book, Strengthen the Mind. And he's joining us all the way from, you said Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Ohio. Thank you so much for your time today, Mr. S. Jones Marshall.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we begin by you introducing yourself and telling us what inspired the authorship of this book?
Well, I am a 39-year survivor of a traumatic brain injury, and I write my poetry for one reason. It's cheaper than going and seeing a shrink.
That's funny.
But you can see that I'm being honest about it.
Right.
So
it's a great way to express yourself and to get things out. And, a lot of authors say this, and even just people, sometimes you have so much bottled up in your heart and in your mind. And a lot of times people underestimate the release that is writing and getting your thoughts on paper.
Well, when the pandemic started, I started writing a book a week, and I wrote 40 small 50 poem books.
You just said you wrote one poetry book a week?
Yep.
Wow. And so, but that's not this, right? That's separate. That's
nope, that's something entirely separate.
Wow. And so at what time in your life did you write this book?
Oh, that's my 8th book of poetry, and I wrote, I wrote that probably the end of 2019. Yeah, probably the end of 2019, and that's actually 2 of my books put together.
Okay, so this book is actually 2 books in one.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. And so I love when authors include a table of contents in there. And so I like how this book is set up. I mean, each poem is basically a topic or a prompt, and we were just talking about this before we started recording. So you can go in the table of contents and you could just, skim, like for example, my eye is going to the word beauty in this list of words. So now I'm going to go to page 20. We have a 2-year-old. Beauty. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which I would have to agree. But the beauty I seek is much deeper than the eyes can see, because the beauty I see lies deep within the soul. That was beautiful. And it's a conversation starter.
Yep.
Yes, I love how all of your poems start conversations. I was telling you earlier, but I just want to recall it again because we're recording now. Somebody was on the phone. I was talking to somebody on the phone, unrelated to books, unrelated to your book, unrelated to books in general. And so the conversation, the bookstore gets brought up. I think I bring it up at the end or something. And she says, I ask her what she likes to read. And she says, well, I'm trying to get back into reading. I want to read something that'll get my mind going. And so I'm looking around and I see this book on the table, Strengthen the Mind. And so I figure that when she gets it in the mail, she would think, oh, this is exactly what I asked for. And so I write her a note and I encourage her to use each of the poems as a journal entry or a poem that she would write herself, and to really, think about what you're talking about. I just flipped open to one and it says, viewing the mind as a bouncing ball. With each bounce, a new thought is formed as it hits the ground. And it just fell on the ground. Isn't that? That's so funny. I know this is probably a hard question to answer. Do you have a poem or a selection of poems from this book that you feel like are your favorite?
You're talking to someone that's been writing for 35 years?
Wow.
Oh no.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. What first introduced you to poetry?
Well, actually, I had an assignment in an English class in high school to where I had to show my creative self. So I started writing poetry. The first poem I ever wrote got published in our local paper.
Oh, wow.
The poem was Love. Love is like a rose, so frail and beautiful. Give it love and affection, it will bloom for a lifetime. But deny it any love or affection, it will wither and die.
That is the truth. I love that. You do you have all or many of your poems memorized?
Nope.
But you remember that one because that was the first one, right?
Yep, that's the only one I've got memorized.
That's funny. Another question for you. Are you still writing one book of poetry every week?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Just wondering.
No, I mean, I was stuck at home from the end of March of 2019 until September of last year.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's like, what am I to do? So I wrote.
Wow. Are you going to publish all of those books somehow, maybe in a fashion like how you did this one?
Maybe. I mean, I actually put together the first 2 books I ever published, put them together and had my editor go over them because I'm also writing a memoir about my accident. So
Wow.
it's like I'm all over the place.
Yeah, and so I was going to ask you what your next book or your next book project will be. So I guess it would be the memoir, right?
Maybe. I mean, I got the memoir, but then I've also got other books of poetry. I've got one book of poetry right now that I'm rewriting and editing and stuff. So, I mean, I'm always working on something.
I know that's right. Got to stay busy. There's probably a poem in here about that. The other reason why I like this book is because no matter what you're talking about, you could say there's probably a poem in here.
More than likely
Oh
a
my goodness, I knew it.
different book.
I knew it. You have a poem called Busy. I'm going to it right now. Busy. Being busy is the only way to be during this life-changing moment. Why did you say that?
If we weren't busy during the pandemic, we're going to sit and worry about everything that could happen. Like if you don't allow yourself to totally focus on the negative, you will find the positive.
That's beautiful. And I know that's right.
Actually, when I woke up from my coma, because when I was hit, I was thrown into a coma. But when I came out of a coma, it's like I'm a master of my body isn't master of me. And if I don't think something, it will not hurt, it will not consume my thoughts.
And question, how long were you in a coma for?
I was in a coma for almost 8 weeks to the exact minute. I'm like, if you're gonna go into a coma, you gotta time correctly.
Wow. And so when you woke up from the coma, did you just wake up?
Well, they said I was semi-comatose for about another 6 weeks, but I mean, I was awake and everything. It's like my memory at the time was not up to par.
Wow.
And I could hear and see everything going on around me while I was in a coma.
Now that is interesting. But you couldn't talk, right?
Nope. Nope. Well, I mean, I could. Well, when I was in a coma, it was in June, July, and my parents would say, when we get to the name of the ice cream you want, open your mouth. And I mean, they'd get to strawberry and I'd open my mouth. It's like totally unreal, but it's like it's like when I was, well, after I came out of the coma, and the doctors were explaining to me and my mom what was medically wrong with me. I was sitting there breaking it down into layman's terms because I was already studying to be a brain surgeon at 11.
Wow. Wow.
It's like I've had people ask me, if you could, would you still want to be a brain surgeon? I said yes, and guess what? I wouldn't have to carry malpractice insurance because I'd be doing the surgery, the surgery robotically, so I could honestly say I never laid a hand on you.
Oh, that's funny. You have a wonderful sense of humor. How do you have such even still, you've been through such a traumatic accident. I know there's going to be people, and there are people who wonder, how does he have such a cheery, positive outlook on life when he's been through so much? What would you say to those people?
Well, I mean, if you do not learn to laugh at yourself going through what I've been through, then you're gonna sit and cry all the time. And I mean, I've got far too much to do to sit around and cry. I mean, one of my friends are like, I've never heard you say the phrase, why me? It's like, please, I've got far too many people in DC to run their little trolley cars off the rails to worry about why me.
I love that. I love that. And I want to really, really thank you for sharing your story, for writing this memoir, which I cannot wait to read whenever it comes out, and for writing putting this together, this book of poetry, Strengthen the Mind by S. Jones Marshall. I want to encourage everyone who's going to be watching this to come by Hidden Gems Literary Emporium, your family-owned nonprofit community bookstore, and get you a copy of Strengthen the Mind by S. Jones Marshall, all the way from Ohio. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing your story and for putting this together. And also, I want to encourage everybody, when you do get the book, you can also call us and we'll ship it to you if you need us to. When you get the book, I want to encourage you to use it as a daily writing prompt or just thought prompt. So just open up to a page or go one by one, however you choose. And so the last poem I'm going to read for this interview is actually a great segue, a great closing. It's on page 50. The poem is called Purpose. Purpose is having the drive to get something done. Period. So use these poems to write your own poems to talk about, your thoughts and feelings around purpose. What is your purpose? These are all things that you can think about just off of this short little poem. So thank you, Mr. S. Jones Marshall. One more thing. If somebody is reading this, maybe they have a question or they would like to stay connected with you to find out about your future books, what's the best way for people to do that?
I've got a YouTube page that is Dream Building 82 is my YouTube page, and it's like if anybody wants to reach out to me, they can. My email address, Jones Stewart, STEWART 697 @gmail.com.
All right. So we encourage all the readers around the world to get a copy again of this book, Strengthen the Mind, here at Hidden Gems Literary Emporium, and send Mr. Jones Marshall an email with your thoughts. And authors always appreciate reviews. So Mr. Stewart, Mr. Jones Marshall, thank you for your time today, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye.